Okay, today is the 16th of August, and we are coming to the last three suttas of the Salayatana-samyutta, Sutta 35.246. Monks, if in any monk or nun, desire or lust, or hatred or delusion, or aversion of mind should arise in regard to forms cognizable by the eye, such a one should rein in the mind from them thus. This path is fearful, dangerous, strewn with thorns, covered by jungle, a deviant path, an evil path, a way beset by scarcity. This is a path followed by inferior people. It is not the path followed by superior people. This is not for you. In this way the mind should be reined in from those states regarding forms cognizable by the eye. So too regarding sounds cognizable by the ear, smells, taste, touch and thoughts. So here the Buddha is saying that whenever the sixth sense objects impinge on our sense bases, if any desire or hatred or delusion should arise, or lust, hatred and delusion should arise, then we should keep the mind in check, remembering that this happening, that this mind is moved by these sense objects. Remember that this is fearful, dangerous, an evil path, a path followed by inferior people. Suppose, monks, that the barley has ripened and the watchman is negligent. If a bull fond of barley enters the barley field, he might indulge himself as much as he likes. So too, monks, the unlearned, ordinary worldling, who does not exercise restraint over the six bases for contact, indulges himself as much as he likes in the five chords of sensual pleasure. Suppose, monks, that the barley has ripened and the watchman is vigilant. If a bull fond of barley enters the barley field, the watchman would catch hold of him firmly by the muzzle. While holding him firmly by the muzzle, he would get a secure grip on the locks between his horns, and keeping him in check there, would give him a sound beating with his staff. After giving him that beating, he would drive the bull away. This might happen a second time and a third time. Thus that bull, fond of barley, whether he has gone to the village or the forest, whether he is accustomed to standing or to sitting, remembering the previous beating he got from the staff, would not enter that barley field again. So too, monks, when a monk's mind has been subdued, well subdued, regarding the six bases for contact, it then becomes inwardly steady, settled, unified and concentrated. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is giving an example of a bull. He goes into a barley field and then the watchman is negligent, does not notice. Because of his carelessness, the bull is able to enter the barley field and indulge and eat all that barley. It's like a person who does not exercise restraint, does not watch over the six bases of contact. So he indulges himself in pleasurable things and feels aversion for unpleasant things. But if the watchman is vigilant, he'll catch the bull and give him a sound beating. So beat him severely, then the bull run away. And if he comes a second time, beats him again. He comes a third time, beats him again. Then the bull will remember the beating and will not enter the barley field again. So in the same way, most people who are not wise to the world, not street-wise, not world-wise, then we like to enjoy worldly pleasures. When we enjoy worldly pleasures, we get a sound beating, we suffer. We suffer, like the other day we read, either we have covetousness, when you enjoy something, you want to possess it, or when you cannot get it, then you feel grief. So these two states, unwholesome states, covetousness and grief. So when we have this unwholesome states, it's like getting a sound beating. So we suffer a few times, and then we learn a lesson. Then next time we are more careful. Then the Buddha said, when a monk's mind has been subdued, well subdued regarding the 6 bases for contact, it then becomes inwardly steady, settled, unified and concentrated. This one is if a monk practices meditation and attains the jhanas. When he attains the jhanas, the mind is subdued. Subdue what? Subdue the 5 hindrances. So when the 5 hindrances are subdued, then the mind becomes steady, settled, unified, concentrated. Then it is not easily moved by external sense objects. Suppose, monks, there was a king or a royal minister who had never before heard the sound of a lute. He might hear the sound of a lute and say, "Good man, what is making this sound? So tantalizing, so lovely, so intoxicating, so entrancing, so enthralling." He would then say to him, "Sire, it is a lute that is making this sound, so tantalizing, so lovely, so intoxicating, so entrancing, so enthralling." He would reply, "Go, man, bring me that lute." They would bring him the lute and tell him, "Sire, this is that lute, the sound of which was so tantalizing, so lovely, etc." The king would say, "I've had enough with this lute, man. Bring me just that sound." The man would reply, "This lute, sire, consists of numerous components, of a great many components, and it gives off a sound when it is played upon with its numerous components. That is, independence on the parchment, sounding board, the belly, the arm, the head, the strings, the plectrum, and the appropriate effort of the musician. So it is, sire, that this lute consisting of numerous components, of a great many components, gives off a sound when it is played upon with its numerous components." The king would split the lute into 10 or 100 pieces. Then he would reduce these to splinters. Having reduced them to splinters, he would burn them in a fire and reduce them to ashes. And he would winnow the ashes in a strong wind, or let them be carried away by the swift current of a river. Then he would say, "A poor thing indeed, sir, is this so-called lute, as well as anything else called a lute. How the multitude are utterly heedless about it, utterly taken in by it." So to monks, a monk investigates form to the extent that there is a range for form. He investigates feeling to the extent that there is a range for feeling. He investigates perception to the extent that there is a range for perception. He investigates volition to the extent that there is a range for volition. He investigates consciousness to the extent that there is a range for consciousness. As he investigates form, feeling, perception, volition and consciousness, whatever notions of I and mine or I am had occurred to him before no longer occur to him. That's the end of the sutta. So here, this simile says that this king, when he heard the sound of the lute, he was so excited by it, thought it was so lovely. So he asked them to bring him the lute. So when he examined the lute, he could not find the sound. So trying to find the sound, he cut the lute into many pieces and could not find it. Then he burned it and still could not find it. So he said, "This is a useless thing." So the simile is trying to say that these 5 aggregates, because we derive pleasure from the body and the mind, so we think it's a very special thing. But when you start investigating the 5 aggregates, body, feeling, perception, volition and consciousness, then you find it is hollow, there's nothing in there. So when you understand the real nature of the 5 aggregates, how they arise to conditions, how they cease to conditions and all that, then the notions of I and mine and I am that we had before will slowly vanish. So the first simile about the bull and the barley field is to tell us to keep a watch on our six sense bases, not to allow the sense objects to move our mind. And the second part is if we investigate the five aggregates thoroughly, then we'll slowly understand there is no I or mine or I am in them. The next sutta, 35.247. Monks, suppose a man with limbs wounded and festering would enter a wood of thorny reeds, and the kusa grass and the kusa thorns would prick his feet, and the reed blades would slash his limbs. Thus that man would thereby experience even more pain and displeasure. So too monks, some monk here, gone to the village or the forest, meets someone who reproaches him thus. This venerable one, acting in such a way, behaving in such a way, is a foul village thorn. Having understood him thus as a thorn, one should understand restraint and non-restraint. And how, monks, is there non-restraint? Here, having seen a form with the eye, a monk is intent upon a pleasing form and repelled by a displeasing form. He dwells without having set up mindfulness of the body with a limited mind, and he does not understand as it really is that liberation by mind, liberation by wisdom, wherein those evil, unwholesome states cease without remainder. Similarly, having heard a sound with the ear, having smelled an odor, having tasted a taste, having cognized a touch, and having cognized a thought, he is intent upon a pleasing contact and repelled by a displeasing contact. He dwells without having set up mindfulness of the body with a limited mind, and he does not understand as it really is that liberation by mind, liberation by wisdom, wherein those evil, unwholesome states cease without remainder. I'll stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha says, a man is already, his limbs are wounded and festering and open wound, and he goes into a forest which has many thorny reeds and kusa thorns, and so the thorns prick his feet, and the reed blades, just like lalang, would cut his limbs, so that man experiences even more pain. So in the same way, the Buddha says, a monk, he goes to a village, and then he meets someone who passes a nasty remark, saying that he is a village thorn. He already has enough dukkha, so this person passes nasty remark, he has more dukkha. Then the Buddha says, so he should understand restraint and non-restraint. Non-restraint means he is moved by the sense objects. If the sense object is pleasing, he desires it, and if it is displeasing, he feels aversion for it. Suppose, monks, a man would catch 6 animals with different domains and different feeding grounds and tie them by a strong rope. He would catch a snake, a crocodile, a bird, a dog, a jackal, and a monkey, and tie each by a strong rope. Having done so, he would tie the ropes together with a knot in the middle and release them. Then those 6 animals with different domains and different feeding grounds would each pull in the direction of its own feeding ground and domain. The snake would pull one way, thinking, let me enter an ant hill. In other words, the snake wants to enter a hole. The crocodile would pull another way, thinking, let me enter the water. The bird would pull another way, thinking, let me fly up into the sky. The dog would pull another way, thinking, let me enter a village. The dog wants to look for food. The jackal would pull another way, thinking, let me enter a charnel ground, a cemetery. The monkey would pull another way, thinking, let me enter a forest. Now when these 6 animals become worn out and fatigued, they would be dominated by the one among them that was strongest. They would submit to it and come under its control. So too monks, when a monk has not developed and cultivated mindfulness directed to the body, the eye pulls in the direction of agreeable forms, and disagreeable forms are repulsive. The ear pulls in the direction of agreeable sounds, and disagreeable sounds are repulsive. The nose pulls in the direction of agreeable odors, and disagreeable odors are repulsive. The tongue pulls in the direction of agreeable tastes, and disagreeable tastes are repulsive. The body pulls in the direction of agreeable tactile objects or touch, and disagreeable tactile objects are repulsive. The mind pulls in the direction of agreeable thoughts, and disagreeable thoughts are repulsive. This in such a way that there is non-restraint. And how monks is there restraint? Here, having seen a form with the eye, a monk is not intent upon a pleasing form, and not repelled by a displeasing form. He dwells, having set up mindfulness of the body with a measureless mind, and he understands as it really is, that liberation by mind, liberation by wisdom, wherein those evil, unwholesome states cease without remainder. Having heard a sound, having smelt a smell, etc., he is not intent upon a pleasing sense contact, and not repelled by a displeasing one. He dwells, having set up mindfulness of the body with a measureless mind, and he understands as it really is, that liberation by mind, liberation by wisdom, wherein those evil, unwholesome states cease without remainder. This in such a way that there is restraint. Suppose monks, a man would catch 6 animals with different domains and different feeding grounds, and tie them by a strong rope. He would catch a snake, a crocodile, a bird, a dog, a jackal and a monkey, and tie each by a strong rope. Having done so, he would bind them to a strong post or pillar. Then those 6 animals with different domains and different feeding grounds would each pull in the direction of its own feeding ground and domain. The snake would pull one way, thinking, let me enter ant hill, etc. And the 6 animals pull in the 6 different directions now. Now when these 6 animals become worn out and fatigued, they would stand close to that post or pillar. They would sit down there. They would lie down there. So too monks. When a monk has developed and cultivated mindfulness directed to the body, the eye does not pull in the direction of agreeable forms, nor are disagreeable forms repulsive. The ear does not pull in the direction of agreeable sounds, nor are disagreeable sounds repulsive. The nose does not pull in the direction of agreeable odors, nor are disagreeable odors repulsive. The tongue does not pull in the direction of agreeable tastes, nor are disagreeable tastes repulsive. The body does not pull in the direction of agreeable tactile objects or touch, nor are disagreeable ones repulsive. The mind does not pull in the direction of agreeable thoughts, nor are disagreeable thoughts repulsive. It is in such a way that there is restraint. A strong post or pillar, this monks, is a designation for mindfulness directed to the body. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will develop and cultivate mindfulness directed to the body. Make it our vehicle, make it our basis, stabilize it, exercise ourselves in it, and fully perfect it. Thus should you train yourselves. It's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha gives a simile to make us understand the unrestrained mind and the restrained mind. So the Buddha gives this simile of 6 animals that are caught by the hunter, and he ties a rope around the neck of each animal, and the 6 ropes he ties into a knot, and then he releases the animals, and the animals would go in 6 different directions. The bird wants to fly up the air, the monkey wants to go to the forest and climb up a tree, the snake wants to go into a hole, the crocodile wants to go into the water, the dog wants to go into town to look for food, the jackal wants to go up the hill. This is a charnel ground. So the 6 animals are pulling in different directions, and whichever one is the strongest, it pulls, and the rest have to follow him. When he's tired, another one will take over and pull, and the others have to follow him. This is a very good simile for the working of the mind. Our mind is pulled by the 6 different sense objects. Forms one has to see, Sounds want us to hear. Smells want us to smell. And similarly your taste, touch and thoughts. So whichever one is strongest at any one time, we pay attention to it. For example, now you are listening to the Dhamma talk. And it's suppose suddenly outside somebody sounds the horn, so loud, your attention immediately is pulled there. So actually this is an unrestrained mind. So our attention is moving from one object to another object. And unfortunately nowadays people talk about momentary concentration. This is exactly momentary concentration. This momentary concentration is of no use at all. It's an unrestrained mind, and it's the normal mind. You don't have to practice momentary concentration. We have momentary concentration all the time. The only problem is what we are paying attention to is of no benefit. Sometimes, for example, you might be meditating and then you fall asleep. When you fall asleep, you are still mindful, but you are mindful of your thoughts, of your dreams. So, for example, if your mind strays and you start having stray thoughts, you're still mindful, but you're mindful of the stray thoughts, which is totally useless. That's why when we practice sati, sati is not mindfulness. Sati is recollection, remembering to put your attention or your mindfulness on only 4 objects, only one of 4 objects: the body, the feeling, the mind, and Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings. Right? So that's the meaning of sati. Sati is remembering to put your mindfulness to these 4 things. That's why it's called recollection. Sati means recollection. If you want to use the word mindfulness, then it is a specific mindfulness. It is not general mindfulness. It is specific mindfulness directed only to 4 things. That is sati. But it's better to remember as recollection because it has to do with remembering, calling to mind these 4 things. Right? So this unrestrained mind is the ordinary mind that is just momentary concentration. Your mind just goes from one object to another, one object to another. You're paying attention to one object and another. It's totally unrestrained. So the Buddha says to restrain the mind, these 6 animals, going back to these 6 animals, to restrain these animals, the Buddha says the hunter has to tie the 6 ropes to a stout pillar. When you tie it to a stout pillar, whichever way they want to go, they can only go around that pillar. They cannot go anywhere else. They go around the pillar until they are totally fatigued. Then they will lie down beside the pillar. They will rest beside the pillar. They can't go anywhere else. That is the way to discipline them, restrain them. Then they are totally subdued. So this simile is telling us this pillar represents mindfulness of the body. So mindfulness of the body. This body is not necessarily the physical body. It can be the breath body, like the Buddha himself practices anapanasati, a recollection of the breath. So the breath itself can be considered as a body. You pay attention to it. But probably you can consider other things, like during the Buddha's time, they practice meditation on the kasinas, like meditating on candlelight. That probably can be considered a body. And meditation on water. Open your eyes, watch the water, see the water, and then close your eyes and open. Constantly keep seeing until the object stays with the mind. So that maybe can be considered a body also. Or you consider your physical body, because as long as your mind is you are mindful of the physical body, the mind does not wander off. So it helps you to preserve your mindfulness. So this is the way to restrain our mind. So if we continually keep our attention fixed to one object, because here the pillar represents one object. So when we meditate now, we are supposed to focus our attention only on one object, not to go from object to object, only one object. The mind tries to run away, we bring it back to that object. It tries to run away, we bring it back to that object. Constantly do that until we are able to subdue the mind. So it will stay, when your mindfulness stays with one object, then the mind becomes unified and you attain the state of jhana. And when you attain the state of jhana, then the 5 hindrances dissolve away. And that is the purpose of meditation, to get rid of the 5 hindrances, so that you can see things clearly as they really are. So that is why in the suttas, the type of meditation praised by the Buddha is always the first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. So this is a very famous sutta, simile of the 6 animals. Okay, now I come to the last sutta in the Salayatana-samyutta, 35.248. The Buddha said, monks, suppose a sheaf of barley was set down at a crossroads. Then 6 men would come along with flails in their hands, and they would strike that sheaf of barley with the 6 flails. Then that sheaf of barley would be well struck, having been struck by the 6 flails. Then a 7th man would come along with a flail in his hand, and he would strike that sheaf of barley with the 7th flail. Thus that sheaf of barley would be struck even still more thoroughly, having been struck by the 7th flail. So here this simile says, you have this bunch of barley tied up, and then these 6 men come along with this flail. Flail is something to whip. So they whip the barley. 6 of them whip the barley, so the barley will be well struck. Then a 7th man would come along and also strike it. So too monks, the unlearned ordinary worldling is struck in the eye by agreeable and disagreeable forms, struck in the ear by agreeable and disagreeable sounds, struck in the nose by agreeable and disagreeable odors, struck in the tongue by agreeable and disagreeable taste, struck in the body by agreeable and disagreeable tactile objects, struck in the mind by agreeable and disagreeable thoughts. If that unlearned ordinary worldling sets his mind upon future renewed existence, then that senseless man is struck even still more thoroughly, just like the sheaf of barley struck by the 7th flail. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha says, just like that sheaf of barley, we are struck by the 6 sense objects. Why do we say we are struck? Because when the 6 sense objects impinge on our 6 sense bases, then feeling arises. Feeling is followed by perception, followed by thoughts, followed by chasing after the object. And so from here you get a lot of what we call fan-nao. All the mental defilements arise because of this 6 sense objects striking at our 6 sense bases. So that's why the Buddha gives us simile of that sheaf of barley being hit and hit again. And then if this ordinary unlearned worldling, he thinks about future rebirth, how he aspires to have a good rebirth in heaven or whatever place, then he is said to be struck even more thoroughly. Why? Because when he thinks of making a wish for the future, then gives him more anxiety. Just like a lot of people, we not only have remorse over things that are past, we worry about things that have not come yet. Worry about the future, we have remorse over the past. So in the same way, this man, if he thinks about the future, rebirth and all that, then maybe either he wants to think of going to heaven, or he's afraid that because his karma is no good, he's going to hell, or he's going to ghost realm or whatever, then all that is to him is fan-nao, mental disturbance, defilements. And then the Buddha continued. Once in the past, monks, the Devas and Asuras were arrayed for battle. Then Vepachiti, lord of the Asuras, addressed the Asuras thus, Good sirs, if in this impending battle the Asuras win and the Devas are defeated, bind Sakka Devaraja by his 4 limbs and neck and bring him to me in the city of the Asuras. And Sakka Devaraja addressed the Tavatimsa Devas, Good sirs, if in this impending battle the Devas win and the Asuras are defeated, bind Vepachiti, lord of the Asuras, by his 4 limbs and neck and bring him to me in Sudhamma, the assembly hall of the Devas. In that battle the Devas won and the Asuras were defeated. Then the Tavatimsa Devas bound Vepachiti by his 4 limbs and neck and brought him to Sakka in Sudhamma, the assembly hall of the Devas. And there Vepachiti, lord of the Asuras, was bound by his 4 limbs and neck. When it occurred to Vepachiti, the Devas are righteous, the Asuras are unrighteous or wrong. Now right here I have gone to the city of the Devas. He then saw himself freed from the bonds around his limbs and neck, and he enjoyed himself furnished and endowed with the 5 cords of divine sensual pleasure. But when it occurred to him, the Asuras are righteous, the Devas are unrighteous. Now I will go to the city of the Asuras. But when it occurred to him, the Asuras are righteous, the Devas are unrighteous. Now I will go to the city of the Asuras. Then he saw himself bound by his 4 limbs and neck, and he was deprived of the 5 cords of divine sensual pleasure. So subtle, monks, was the bondage of Vepachiti, but even subtler than that is the bondage of Mara. In conceiving, one is bound by Mara. By not conceiving, one is freed from the evil one. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is saying that this king of the Asuras, he was caught by the Devas and he was brought to the Deva city. The Devas, they have Sakka Devaraja as their head. So when he was caught and tied up, if he thought that the Asuras are right and the Devas are wrong, then he feels himself a prisoner. He's very unhappy. He feels he should not be there, tied up like that. So he has a lot of mental suffering. But on the other hand, the Buddha says, if he had thought that actually the Devas are right and the Asuras in wrong in starting the fight or something like that, so he has nothing against the Devas. So if they caught him, then he would be happy to be caught. Then he would have no thoughts troubling him when he is caught and brought to the Devas. In which case, if he concurs with the Devas, that the Devas are right, then probably they would probably also release him and let him enjoy all the heavenly pleasures. So what the Buddha is trying to say is that our perception, our thinking is very important. If you think in the right way, you don't suffer. If you think in the wrong way, you suffer. So a lot of people, like for example, when dukkha comes, a lot of people, you cannot accept it. For example, if somebody says something nasty to you, then you start thinking, why did he say this to me? I've been so good to him. I've done him so many favors and all that. I don't deserve to be scolded like that and all that. The more you think, the more defilements arise. You become very angry, and perhaps that whole night you cannot sleep. But on the other hand, if somebody says something nasty to you, then you think that must be my karma. Maybe in the past I offended him, I didn't notice. Or in the past life I did something wrong, so now I deserve what I get. And then you have no problem anymore, right? You just forget about the incident. But it's only when you cannot accept it, then all the mental defilements will follow. So the way we look at things is very important, our state of the mind. So the Buddha is saying, so subtle, monks, was the bondage of Vepachiti, but even subtler than that is the bondage of Mara. In conceiving, one is bound by Mara. by not conceiving, one is freed from the evil one. Monks, I am is a conceiving. I am this is a conceiving. I shall be is a conceiving. I shall not be is a conceiving. I shall consist of form is a conceiving. I shall be formless is a conceiving. I shall be percipient is a conceiving. I shall be non-percipient is a conceiving. I shall be neither percipient nor non-percipient is a conceiving. Conceiving is a disease. Conceiving is a tumor. Conceiving is a dart. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. You will dwell with a mind devoid of conceiving. Stop here for a moment. So the Buddha says, the tendency of the mind to conceive. Conceive is like to have a concept. Quan Nian, Chinese called Quan Nian, that I exist. Because, for example, when happiness arises, for example, you see something beautiful, or you hear very nice sounds, or you taste very good food, then you like to think, I am enjoying myself. I am enjoying myself. Instead of just thinking there is just a pleasurable feeling arising. But because we have this perception that I enjoy. So the Buddha calls this the bondage of Mara. If you have this concept, I, then one day you enjoy, I am happy. Another day, I will suffer. So happiness and suffering follows one after another, because this world is impermanent. When you enjoy anything, when it goes away, then you will have suffering. So this I am, the Buddha says, is a trap of Mara. And if you keep on conceiving, you will suffer. So this concept that I am or I exist, we should be very careful. If we don't have the concept I, then you don't suffer. Monks, I am is a perturbation. I am this is a perturbation. It's a disturbance of the mind. And all these other views, it's a disturbance of the mind. It's a dart, it's a tumor. Monks, I am is a palpitation. Something that will shake you. I am this is a palpitation. I shall be is a palpitation. Palpitation is a disease. It's a tumor, it's a dart. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves. We will dwell with a mind devoid of palpitation. Monks, I am is a proliferation. Proliferation is papancha, proliferation of thoughts. I am this is a proliferation. I shall be is a proliferation. Proliferation is a disease. Proliferation is a tumor, is a dart. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. You will dwell with a mind devoid of proliferation. Monks, I am is an involvement with conceit. I am this is an involvement with conceit. I shall be is an involvement with conceit. I shall whatever, etc. Involvement with conceit is a disease. Involvement with conceit is a tumor. Involvement with conceit is a dart. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. You will dwell with the mind in which conceit has been struck down. Thus should you train yourselves. It's the end of the sutta. So in this last part, the Buddha says, just like the Vipachiti, when he was caught, depending on his state of mind, if his state of mind is not skillful, then he will suffer. If his state of mind, he has skillful thoughts, wholesome thoughts, then he will not have so much mental suffering. So in the same way, if we have this conceiving that I am, I exist, then a lot of suffering will follow. And this conceiving, the Buddha says, is a perturbation. It's something that disturbs your mind. It's a palpitation, something that will shake your mind. It's a proliferation. It's a multiplication of thoughts. It's an involvement with conceit. Okay. So there we have finished the Salayatana-samyutta.